Hello and welcome to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio, the International DX program from AWR. I'm Jeff White. This program was researched and written in Indianapolis, Indiana by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. Today on Wavescan, Amelia Earhart flies again, radio broadcasting from remote Howland Island. More from the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters 2014 meeting in Greenville, North Carolina, and our Philippine DX report. According to recent news announcements, Amelia Earhart is scheduled to leave Oakland in California sometime around the middle of this month of June on the first stage in her flight around the world. Amelia will pilot a Swiss-made Pilatus PC-12NG, valued at $4.5 million, and it's estimated that the total flight time on this 24,000-mile journey will occupy 98 hours, spread out over 17 or 18 days. Of course, this Amelia Earhart is not the famous 40-year-old flyer of 1937 who got lost somewhere in the Central Pacific in 1937, but rather a 31-year-old TV news and weather girl at KUSA TV9 in Denver, Colorado, who has the same name. This modern Amelia Rose Earhart was named in honor of the famous Amelia Mary Earhart, who captured world attention and admiration in the earlier days of aviation development with her daring flights over the land and over the oceans. Mary Rose Earhart was born in Downey, California in 1983, and even though there is no known ancestral connection with the famous Amelia Mary Earhart, yet she was named in honor of the famous woman aviatrix who lived in the era before World War II. Because of the name connection, the modern Earhart girl developed an intense interest in aviation, and beginning quite soon, she is scheduled to begin her round-the-world flight, following as much as possible the same flight plan as her more famous forebear. In fact, 10 of her 14 stopovers will be at the same locations as the first Earhart. This 2014 copycat flight is by no means the first attempt on the part of subsequent flyers to emulate the flight path of the first Amelia Earhart. Over the years, many others have done so. And in 1964, for example, 2 female flyers left on their endeavors to fly around the world just 2 days apart. These 2 aviatrix emulators were Geraldine Fredericks Mock of Ohio and Joan Merriam Smith of California. On the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the original Earhart flight, Ann Deering Holtgren Pellegrino of Chicago, Illinois, flew around the world. That was in 1967. Then, 30 years later, as a 60th anniversary gesture, Linda Finch of San Antonio, Texas, flew the same pathway in 1997. Each flyer dropped a wreath on Howland Island in honor of the famous Amelia Mary Earhart. Howland Island is located in the mid-Pacific, halfway between Hawaii and Australia. The island is just 1.5 miles long and 1/2 mile wide. Some geographers state that this tropical island is shaped like a banana, though perhaps more accurately and less romantically, we could say that it is shaped like the human kidney. The island covers just 450 acres with a total coastline of 4 miles, and the highest elevation is a minimal 20 feet. The island was first sighted by Captain George Worth on board the ship Eno in 1822, and he named it Worth Island in his own honor. Then, 6 years later, Daniel Mackenzie, on board the Minerva Smith, named the island Howland in honor of the ship's owners. In 1856, the United States took over Howland Island, and during the following year, American commercial interests began the mining and export of guano, though this project ended 21 years later. In 1886, the British laid claim to Howland, and they imported a few residents from the Cook and Niue Islands to establish this claim. However, 5 years later, the British occupation ended. The Americans began an attempt at colonization in 1935, and they transferred several students from a school in Hawaii for this purpose. together with a large supply of foodstuffs and other provisions, including cigarettes, which were incorrectly considered during that era to be a health benefit. Included also was a set of radio communication equipment. The Hawaiian schoolboys constructed a small settlement, which they named Itasca Town, in honor of the ship that conveyed them to the island. They also cleared and surfaced a runway, which was intended for use as a refueling stop for planes flying between the United States and Australia. In 1937, 2 additional runways were prepared in advance for the arrival of Amelia Mary Earhart on her round-the-world flight. And during that same year, a tribe of feral cats was introduced onto the island to destroy a plague of black rats that had been introduced more than 80 years earlier. The cats, that had since become a menace to the native bird population, were eliminated in 1985. On December 8, 1941, just one day after Pearl Harbor, a flight of 14 Japanese Mitsubishi bombers bombed the island, destroying the small Itasca town, killing 2 of the remaining schoolboys, and damaging the lightless lighthouse. The U.S. Marines occupied the island for around 3/4 of a year, beginning in May 1943, and during that time they operated a Loran navigation station. These days, personnel from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service visit the island every 2nd year, and sometimes a group of radio amateurs accompanies the expedition, and they set up a temporary amateur radio station. For a period of a few days, the visiting amateur radio operators on Howland are able to make several thousand QSOs with other amateur radio operators all around the world under a highly desired KH1 or AH1 call sign.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Thank you, Alan Graham. At midnight UTC, that is 10 a.m. local time on Friday, July 2nd, 1937, the original Amelia Earhart, together with navigator Fred Noonan, flew off from Lae, New Guinea, on what turned out to be the end of their epic flight around the world. They estimated that they would reach tiny Howland Island, 2,556 miles distant, after flying 18 hours, and the plane carried an additional 4 hours of fuel in case of emergency. 19.5 hours later, Amelia radioed to the ship Itasca, anchored off Howland Island, that they must be somewhere near their intermediate Pacific destination. At 2014 UTC, on that same tragic day, 6:14 a.m. Howland time, Amelia spoke what is recognized as her last reliable radio message. She stated that the plane was flying on the line 157-337 degrees, though she did not state in which direction. Many theories exist as to what happened next, though subsequent research would indicate that it is possible that the shiny Lockheed Electra crash-landed in shallow waters just off Gardner Island, some 300 miles southeast from Howland Island. It is known that navigator Fred Noonan had the plane veer slightly south soon after takeoff from Lae in New Guinea in order to go around a thunderstorm. It's possible that when the plane returned to the intended flight course, they were still headed a little south of their projected flight path. Thus, when they arrived near Howland Island, they could have turned south with the hope of flying over the island, but instead they would have been flying away from it. The Lockheed Electra ran at a speed of 200 miles per hour. Gardner Island is 300 miles south from Howland, and if they were headed in that direction, then it would take 1.5 hours flying time. Maybe then, in this alternative theory, the plane crash-landed in the ocean south of Howland before they arrived at Gardner, when the fuel was exhausted. It seems that this possibility has not been given thorough research. Government and private search parties utilizing a dozen ships, more than 100 planes, and more than 3,000 men hunted all over the neighboring areas around Howland, but mainly to the north, for nearly a month, with no positive indication of what had happened to the downed flyers. On board this shiny new Lockheed Electra, there was a 50-watt Western Electric communication transmitter that was modified for communication on 3 fixed frequencies: 3105 kHz by night, 6210 kHz by day, the first harmonic of the 3 MHz channel, and 500 kHz when close to the ship Itasca. The Earhart plane was licensed with the American call sign KHAQQ, and the transmitting schedule was the hour plus 15 and 45 minutes. The receiver aboard the plane was a hand-tuned 4-band Western Electric 20B communication receiver operating from 12-volt battery power. The 4 bands were the standard long-wave, medium-wave, tropical shortwave, and international shortwave bands. There was also the recently developed Bendix radio direction finder, a receiving loop that was attached on top of the cabin. This receiving attachment was tuned by the airplane's regular receiver. The antenna systems were the V-type doublet, which was attached to the wing tips and the fuselage, normally a trailing long wire, which apparently was accidentally or deliberately removed before the plane left Lie, and of course the above-mentioned rotatable Bendix loop. During the extended journey from Lie to Howland, Amelia made several aviation communications with other radio stations, on board ships and upon small islands. News about her progress across the Pacific was made known to the world news media, though no actual broadcasts from the plane were relayed by any of the medium-wave and shortwave radio broadcasting stations. The American Coast Guard ship USCGS Itasca was anchored offshore at Howland Island during the Earhart events. This ship carried 4 transmitters for voice and Morse communication and 2 operating positions with receivers. During the Earhart saga, one operator handled the regular maritime communications, and the other operator handled all communications regarding the Earhart events. The Itasca, with the call sign NRUI, passed on progressive information and media news to communication stations located in Hawaii, and this information was then relayed onwards for widespread dissemination in the continental United States and beyond via stations in California. The corresponding stations in Hawaii that cooperated in the Earhart search were Pan Am KNBF, U.S. Navy NPM Pearl Harbor, American Army WTJ Fort Shafter, and Coast Guard NMO. Medium wave stations KGMB and KGU in Honolulu broadcast special messages to Amelia Earhart, and they also updated local listeners with updated progress reports. On Howland Island itself during the Earhart events, there were 2 radio transmitters. Schoolboy settler Yatfai Lum with his amateur station K6GNW, and a portable transmitter from the ship Itasca under the call sign NRUI-2. These 2 transmitters carried communication traffic with nearby areas and fed their information into NRUI aboard the Itasca. Thus it was that all news and information about the Earhart saga from the Howland area was provided to Hawaii and then the United States from the ship Itasca. Interestingly, there was an amateur radio operator on Howland Island for a short while, in June of the following year, under the call sign K6BAZ. Perhaps this occasion was part of a follow-up search endeavor. However, in subsequent information, the New Zealand DX Times stated in March 2000 that a medium wave station was on the air on Howland Island at a time when the island was part of the Republic of Howland and Baker. This fictional micronation even operated its own bogus website. Well, you're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. A couple of weeks ago, we presented the first part of an interview that we conducted at the recent National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters annual meeting in Greenville, North Carolina, at the IBB, or Voice of America, relay station there. We spoke with Ray Robinson and Jerry Plummer to people who you regularly hear here on Wavescan about what happened at the NASB meeting. Today, let's continue with that conversation. George Ross from KTWR in Guam also talked about they're broadcasting regularly in DRM now to Asia.
To Japan in particular, right?
Yes.
Because in Japan, the problem has always been lack of receivers. But in Japan, the shortwave listener is a more sophisticated listener and not frightened of using SDRs and has the equipment and the interest to want to pick up international broadcasts in Japanese. So that's probably a pretty unique situation where DRM listening is concerned. But I was really encouraged this time by the developments in receiver development, particularly from several Indian companies, and the goal to get handheld receivers down below the $30 price point, which I think would make a huge difference in the third world, where most of the member stations of NASB have target markets, target audiences that they're trying to reach.
In the continental United States right now, there's nobody, continental United States and really throughout the Western Hemisphere, there is nobody broadcasting in DRM right now. And that's very different from, say, 5 years ago. So is DRM dead in this hemisphere?
I don't know. I don't know about this hemisphere. I think it's the chicken and the egg syndrome. As Ray says, if you can get down below that $30 mark and you start selling literally millions of receivers, I think that supply will create its own demand. I think then it will become an attractive environment. And the sound is truly good.
Yeah. If the Indian government, for instance, were to mandate that all car radios on cars that were imported into India had to include DRM, which they might, I mean, that is something that will very quickly spread globally. And
true.
I would predict, honestly, this time next year, I think you will see DRM broadcasts within the US for a North American audience. I think that's entirely possible.
The money side of me asks the same question always. All of the owner-operators of shortwave stations are concerned about reduction in energy costs. And I still have yet to see exact proof of that, but I really do believe that it will save a substantial amount of cost. Now, somebody like Jeff doesn't worry about money, but the rest of us do.
Yeah, right. Now, another interesting mode of shortwave is what they're doing with VOA Radiogram right here at the IBB Greenville plant.
Right here, yes.
Kim Elliott in Washington is producing a program that's broadcast from here every week in these MFSK modes,
Yes.
strange.
Yes.
How would you describe it?
It's a pretty good way to, what as he described it, a different approach than I've seen. It's almost like appears to be like a text message across borders where the internet has been barred, and it will go across those areas. You know, that's one of the beauties of shortwave is that there are no barriers, and it would be particularly attractive for sending text messages and pictures across borders and across barriers that have been blocked by governments. And we've seen that can work. It's a pretty interesting concept.
One of the interesting things that he demonstrated was some recordings that he had from, I think, Mexico and maybe several other places, where the introduction to the radiogram was voice, and you could very, very faintly hear what was being said. It was a weak signal, and it wasn't easy to listen. I wouldn't even have called it a listenable signal. But then the voice transferred to the digital mode for the text transmission, and that got through and was able to be decoded by the equipment that was being used.
And it had no errors.
So the text gets through even if voice doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of power and potential to that for countries in particular, as you said, Jerry, where the internet is tightly controlled or blocked completely. And I mean, as we know, natural disasters occur, infrastructure can be impacted, and yet shortwave still gets through. And I think it'd be very foolish to give up on modes like this. I think it's important.
Those who want more information, I think, can go to the VOA Radiogram site and find out.
Yeah, voaradiogram.net. And Kim Andrew Elliott does that.
Right.
You can find it on the internet easily. Yeah.
Now, Jerry, someone from your area of the woods, Charles Caudle of World Christian Broadcasting, gave an update, and it was one of a series of updates. It was almost the same thing that we've been hearing every year for a number of years now about their Madagascar World Voice project in Africa, but he had a little bit more positive news this time.
To be quite frank, I don't think maybe even you know this yet. There's a news scoop that he just told me less than 10 minutes ago that it is a go, that the Madagascar, he just got the approval from the government and the new ownership that they have the approval to move ahead with placement of that transmitter and setting up the operation.
Right. I mean, for those who may not be aware, World Christian Broadcasting currently operates the KNLS station in Alaska, which broadcasts to Pacific Rim and focuses on that area right now. But they have this station that they started building years ago in the Malagasy Republic. And all of the antennas are up, and it's basically ready for operation other than for the transmitters being installed. They have 3 high-power transmitters sitting on a dock in Houston, Texas, or Galveston, and waiting for shipment to Africa. The station was blocked politically, but there has been an election there, and they now have a much more cooperative regime to deal with.
Yes.
And so now that the one thing they were waiting for, they appear to have, so the green light has been given, and they're going to ship the transmitters from Texas.
Those Continentals will finally be leaving the United States.
It'll be great to hear that station on the air.
Oh, yeah, it
And I
sure
think
will.
it'll be very beneficial also to the Malagasy Republic. It will help their tourism industry. It will help put them on the map and become more recognized in the outside world.
They did say, for example, Charles said that their station in Alaska, KNLS, has a regular feature, postcards from Alaska.
Yes.
And
I'm
that,
sure they'll
that
be,
their
yeah.
Madagascar station is going to do the same sort of thing to talk about Madagascar on the station there. So that should be some unique content on shortwave.
It's very good news for Charles and KNLS and World Christian. It's very good news for the shortwave industry, for all of us, really.
And by the way, Charles did tell me about a half hour ago, so I did get a 15-minute...
But this will be the first announcement. I know how you do me.
And you heard there Jerry Plummer of WWCR in Nashville, Tennessee, and Ray Robinson of KVOH in Los Angeles, California, speaking with us at the NASB annual meeting for 2014 in Greenville, North Carolina, a few weeks back. You're listening to Wavescan, and next we're going to the Philippines. Here's Henry Umanhai with his monthly report of DX News.
Hello everyone, to the dear shortwave listeners. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're welcome to the June 8th edition of the Philippine DX News. This is report number 88. I'm Henry Umaday in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines. Glad to be back, and thank you for listening. First, I would like to thank our DXer friends for sending the reception report, Mr. Arthur Fernandez Lorilla in Catalonia, Spain, and Mr. Haynes Haring in Austria. Thank you very much. Reception lags for May 2014. May 1, Radio Taiwan International on 13:59 a.m. Medium wave in English from Taiwan at 11:42 UTC. SI rating 333. May 1, China Radio International on 17:505 kilohertz in Filipino from Beijing at 12:24. SI rating 444. May 3, Radio Japan on 11:740 in English from Yamata at 1200. SIO 333. May 4, Voice of Korea on 11:735 in Korean at 1200. SI rating 444. May 10, Adventist World Radio on 17:550 in Filipino from Guam at 1050. SI rating 555. May 10, Radio Thailand World Service on 9390 in English from Odantani at 1230. SIO 333. May 11, PCJ Media International on 13720 in English from Sri Lanka at 1230. SIO 454. May 11, Bangladesh Betar on 15105 kilohertz in English at 1230. SI rating 444. May 17, Bible Voice on 21480 in English from Canada at 1120. SIO 333. May 17, KBS World Radio on 6095 in English at 1320. SI rating 333. May 17, KBS World Radio on 9640 in English at 1405 UTC. SI rating 343. May 17, All India Radio on 13710 in English from Bangalore at 1410. SIO 0333 and May 25 Adventist World Radio on 17550 in Ilocano from Guam at 1040 SIO 555. We have a special QSL card just for you. For your reception report, please send one IRC International Reply Coupon or $2 return postage will be greatly appreciated. And friends, if you want to get the transcript of today's Pilipinas DX News and see our QSL card series, please visit http://pilipinasdx.wordpress.com. That's http://pilipinasdx.wordpress.com. Follow us also on Facebook, www.facebook.com/pilipinasdx, or you may want to send us your comments, suggestions, reception logs, and informations to pilipinasdx@yahoo.com. That's PILIPINASDX for pilipinasdx@yahoo.com. This has been Henry Umaday for Wavescan in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines, saying mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
South from Okeechobee and reaching to the Keys lays the mighty wonder nature made. 100 miles of jade, the mighty Everglades. It's beautiful at sunset, but oh, there's something else that makes the bravest heart afraid. A world of things a-crawling, a thumping and a bawling, and wading in the Everglades.
Jim Reeves singing The Mighty Everglades. Ending today's edition of Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson. Next week on Wavescan, a historic note, the Voice of America on the air in Australia, Part 2, and our DX report from Bangladesh. A reminder that we have 2 QSL cards available for your reception reports on this program, one issued by Adventist World Radio, another by WRMI. The address for your reception reports is Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. Our email address is wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next time, good listening, everyone.
Everglades, seeping, crawling, spirits sliding, hiding, my love in the Everglades, over and over. I call, but now she's gone forever, and my heart is wandering with her through the mighty Everglades. A world of things a-crawling, a thumping and a bawling,